Hey everyone. In this video, I want to talk about what to do if you're hurting inside. So I'll share with you a few tips that I hope can help you get over whatever it is that you're dealing with. And the first tip is to make self-care a priority during this period. You don't want to neglect yourself because quite often a lot of us, when we're going through pain, we tend to focus on that pain and kind of get lost in it, and we neglect ourselves during that period. And you don't want to do that because neglecting your health and your mental health is only going to make you feel worse. So recognize that this is a possibility that happens to a lot of people and choose to make self-care a priority during this period. I mean, in general, you should always be focusing on that, but especially during times when you're hurting, because you don't want to give in to your emotions and start eating for pleasure. I mean, so this is me speaking from experience. In the past, when I was hurting a lot, I would eat way too much ice cream and I would end up feeling temporarily good when I was eating it, but then inevitably you have the crash from the sugar and you feel worse. So don't eat for pleasure. Take care of your health right now, and especially your mental health. I would say you should really focus on eating good when you're feeling bad, because a lot of us forget the connection between our mind and our body. And if you start eating like crap just because you're feeling bad right now, it'll only make you feel worse. So don't do that. And another pro tip I could give you in regards to health is take magnesium and vitamin D supplements during this time, because they will make you feel a lot better. Magnesium is actually something that when people are deficient in it, it can make you depressed. That's how important it is. So make sure you take magnesium and vitamin D. They'll uplift you when you're feeling down, and they can help you get through this. So now on to the next step. Allow your emotions, but don't act on them and don't wallow in them. So what this means is pretty much feel your emotions, allow them to rise up within you, but don't take action on them and don't get lost in them and start wallowing in them, because both of those are bad things. I mean, I can give you an example from my own life. About 3 years ago, I was going through a really difficult period, pretty much the most difficult period in my life up until then, where I was basically dealing with my parents were about to move to another state, so I was feeling abandoned by them, and that meant I had to find a new place to live. And I just got into my first real car accident where my car that I loved was completely totaled, so I had to focus on finding a new car. And then a few weeks after the car crash, I ended up getting laid off from what was a really awesome job. It was my first job out of university, and it was at a startup, and I loved it. It was a great work environment. I loved my boss. It had great potential for a future career. It was awesome, but that ended up falling apart. So the day I got laid off was about a month and a half before my parents were going to move. So I had all these things just happening at once, and I did not feel great. I was pretty much depressed. And I remember driving home from after getting laid off and having the thought of driving into oncoming traffic because I just didn't want to deal with everything. It was too much at once. And I had that thought, but I didn't act on it. And this is what I mean. You do not want to act on your emotions, because you could end up making really hasty decisions that affect you permanently. Either you could end up taking your own life, like I was thinking of doing, but didn't act on it, thankfully, or you could permanently hurt a relationship with someone you care about. So always recognize in those moments that it's okay to have those thoughts. It's okay to occasionally have a thought that's that dark. I mean, it happens to all of us from time to time. So don't judge yourself and start beating yourself up when you have those thoughts. I didn't do that. I knew that it wouldn't be productive at all. So it's okay when you have those thoughts. The important thing is that you don't act on them. So don't act on them, please, for the love of all that is holy. You are important. You matter. You are going to impact the lives, and you're already impacting the lives of people who are in your immediate environment. So please don't cut your journey short just because you're in pain. So don't act on those emotions. Basically, what I like to think about is try observing your emotions in a way. So don't identify with them and don't judge them. Kind of treat them like something your body creates that you aren't responsible for, because that's kind of what they are in a way. I mean, we can't control our emotions from rising up within us, right? We can just kind of control how we react to them once they're there. And a lot of people choose to shove them down or suppress them, but you don't want to do that because that just makes them linger and kind of grow under the surface. So you want to allow yourself to feel them because that way they can be released. But you don't want to get lost in them. And the way to do that is to just observe them. So if you're feeling sad, feel wherever it is arising in your body because that's helpful. It helps you detach from them because you realize they do originate in your body. It's literally energy in your body. So feel wherever that energy is originating. For instance, when I feel stressed or anxious, it's usually in my stomach area. But if you're feeling heartbreak, that'll likely be in your heart space or something like that. So feel where the emotion is originating and then just recognize it. Just observe it. Just notice, hey, I'm feeling this emotion. I'm feeling it in this area. And then once you've observed it, just let it be there. Let it exist for however long it wants to stay there. And eventually it'll get released and it'll go away. And this is what you want to do. Don't start judging the emotion and beating yourself up for feeling it, and don't identify with it. A lot of people, when they're feeling sad, will then say, I'm depressed. Don't do that. Just feel the sadness and say, I feel sad, or I am feeling sad. Do you notice the difference there? In one case, you're literally giving the emotion complete power over you. You're saying, I am that emotion, when you're not. And whereas in the other case, you're just saying that this emotion is just a temporary thing that you're feeling in the moment. So it doesn't have that power over you. So always stick to saying, I feel this way, not I am this way, because your emotions aren't permanent. They don't have that kind of power over you unless you give it to them by identifying with them. So just observe them, just notice them when they rise up, but then let them go and don't act on them and don't wallow in them. And this brings us to the next step, which is get to the root of why you feel the way that you do. Now, I know this may sound obvious because quite often we're going to say, hey, it's because of this event or this event, that's why I feel this way. But what I mean is sometimes we can get triggered by things that have happened to us in the past. So for instance, if you're dealing with heartbreak because you just ended or just got broken up, I'm wording this horribly, because you're just dealing with the breakup, then recognize that sometimes you could actually be feeling emotions from previous breakups that you didn't heal from. Their current breakup could be triggering your emotions from those previous breakups. So being aware of that helps you deal with your emotions because then you say, oh, okay, so I feel this way because of these things over here that I previously didn't deal with because I was too young to understand how to deal with them. And that's okay. Then you just recognize that, you accept them, make peace with them, and let them go. And sometimes it can be even beyond that. It can be feelings from our childhood, feelings of abandonment when we were really young, or feelings of being unlovable, or fear of being unlovable, that kind of thing. You just want to see if whatever event you're dealing with is triggering emotions from your past. Because then you can deal with those emotions instead of thinking, why is this event making me feel so horrible when it wasn't all that bad on its own? It kind of gives you that perspective to know why you're feeling the way that you are, and that awareness helps you deal with your emotions in the first place. So this is always a helpful thing to do. And now, on to the next and last step, which is be kind to yourself throughout this entire process and drop your expectations. So being kind to yourself is pretty much self-evident. That means don't beat yourself up, don't self-sabotage, do not listen to that negative voice in your head because let me share something interesting with you here. That negative voice probably isn't even your own. I mean, nobody comes into this planet, into being a human and immediately trashing themselves all the time and talking shit to themselves. Nobody does that. It's something we all learn. No baby thinks, oh, you're horrible, you're never going to be able to learn how to walk. No, they don't think that. Even when they fall, they don't have that. That hasn't been taught to them yet. So those negative voices are things that society and people have taught you as you were growing up. They're not even your own. So recognize that and just tell them to fuck off. That's what I like to do, and it works really well for me. So whenever that negative voice starts yapping in the back of my head, I'm like, fuck off, I don't need you. You're useless, you don't help me at all, go away. And I kick it to the curb, and that's what you should do. Just don't allow those voices to have power over you. Don't give in to them, don't listen to them. I mean, I still have those voices talking to me, not all that often, but they're still there from time to time. And I just don't listen to them anymore. And that's what you need to do. That's how you be kind to yourself and how you don't allow that voice to beat you up. Because you really shouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't have been doing that if it wasn't taught to you. In a perfect world where people were actually kind to each other and that sort of thing, we wouldn't have that negative voice in the back of our minds beating us up because we wouldn't have learned to do that behavior. So just tell that voice to get the fuck out of here because you don't need it. And what I meant by dropping your expectations is pretty much drop your expectations of how you should feel and how quickly you should be healing. These are important because when we're in pain, a lot of us like to judge ourselves for how we're feeling because we have all these expectations about what we should be feeling. So if we feel worse than our expectations, then oh boy, do we beat ourselves up over that. And if we aren't healing as quickly as we thought we should be because of our expectations, then oh boy, do we beat ourselves up for that too. So just let go of your expectations. They don't serve you. Realize that during this time, you need time and space to heal. And you don't know how much of either you really need. You don't know how long it's going to take for you to heal. You don't know what kind of emotions you'll be feeling or the depth of those emotions. So just drop your expectations completely. Be kind to yourself. Don't judge yourself right now. Just let everything happen day by day. It's kind of like you're going through a tunnel and there's a light at the end of it, but you can't quite discern how close you are to that light because the tunnel is so dark that you aren't able to judge the distance. So don't start throwing expectations about how many days out from now you should be able to reach the light because you don't know. And eventually you will reach that light. You'll come out of the tunnel and you'll be in the sun and you'll see a beautiful scenery before you with beautiful mountains and trees and a lake and everything just glistening in the sunlight. And you'll say, I made it through that tunnel and it wasn't as bad as I thought. And I'm a better person now. I'm stronger and I'm going to tackle the future now. And you won't know how long that will take until you reach that point. So don't try putting any arbitrary timelines on yourself before then. Just take it day by day and be kind to yourself. Anyway, before I end this video, I just want to summarize these things. So the first tip was to make self-care a priority. You do not want to neglect yourself right now. And the second one was to allow your emotions, but don't act on them and don't wallow in them or get lost in them. The third tip was to get to the root of why you feel the way that you do, because that will help you deal with your emotions and get through this. And then the fourth and final tip is to be kind to yourself throughout the process and to drop your expectations. Anyway, I truly hope this video helped you, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Arrivederci!